huge news story. The Liver King has been exposed as a fraud. Do you know who the Liver King is? I didn't either. Brett Cooper actually turned me on to him. He's some social media phenomenon where he's this super jacked guy who never has a shirt on, and he's always just eating organs of giant animals. He'll sit there. I saw one video, he said, "Why would you chew gum when you could eat lung?" And he pulls off part of a cow lung and starts chewing on it. The whole idea was, I don't really do anything special. I just eat all these totally primal kinds of foods, and that's how I got super jacked. And the guy was obviously on steroids. And it just came out that he's on steroids, and here's his apology.
Primals, I'm making this video to apologize. Because I f***ed up, because I'm embarrassed and ashamed, because I lied and I misled a lot of people. I've stated that this is a complicated as topic, at least to me it is, because before social media, I was rich and anonymous, and after social media, I'm still rich, but no longer anonymous, and I never expected this kind of exposure in the public eye. It's been tricky as to navigate. Well, clearly I did it wrong, and I'm here now to set the record straight. Yes, I've done steroids, and yes, I am on steroids, monitored and managed by a trained hormone clinician.
Wow, shocking. None of us could ever see this. No, you can. You can if you're not taken by this constant push that is accelerated by social media and by our pop culture and our celebrity culture to just be more and more outrageous, more and more shocking. One maxim that I often come back to on this show is, hey, be normal. Just be normal. It's good to be normal. It's we were talking about at the top of the show. You don't have to hand it to Hitler. You don't, actually. You don't. People are titillated by really shocking statements and it gets and shocking images, and it gets people to think, wow, maybe this thing that I know is not possible or not true or completely out of left field, maybe it really is true. Usually it's not. Usually things are just a lot more normal than all of that. Generally speaking, you can just trust your faculties of reason and your moral conscience and the traditions in which you have been raised. Generally speaking, those are going to be much better guides to your own life than, some person making some insane sort of claim, whether it be about the Second World War or about how to get really jacked eating cow lung or something. If it seems too wild, crazy, singular to be true, it probably is. This is in part why we are conservatives, because we understand that the old tried and true stuff has a much better track record than the modern flights of fancy, titillating though they may be.
Hi, Michael. Arun here. I am an astrophysicist, which I mention for context because you recently piqued my curiosity when you mentioned that behind the heliocentrism debate within the Catholic Church during the 17th century were deeper and more profound philosophical and theological issues. I was wondering if you could talk from your perspective as a Catholic Christian about what those philosophical issues are, and maybe also about what are the philosophical and perhaps even metaphysical implications of the Einsteinian view of the universe, in which there is no preferred center to the universe. Thank you, as always, for your wisdom.
Arun, very, very good question. Yes, you can see how misrepresented the Catholic Church's position on science has been when you look at the history of these sorts of controversies. One, the most prominent scientists ever have been not only Catholic, but in many cases have been Catholic priests. Father George Lemaitre is the person who first theorized the Big Bang. Catholic priest. Gregor Mendel, Catholic priest, the discoverer of Mendelian inheritance and genetics. Copernicus was maybe a Catholic priest, though that's a little bit unclear. He was at least a Catholic canon, and many, many others. But if you look at, say, when Copernicus puts forward the idea that the Earth revolves around the sun, he was not really persecuted for it. Galileo puts forward this idea, and he was persecuted for it, but not exactly for suggesting the idea. It was more for being just a huge jerk all the time. And so when Copernicus's book comes out on the celestial spheres, there was a preface added to the book that said that this is meant to facilitate calculations, but it's not necessarily meant to be taken literally. Galileo comes out and not only proposes his view as a literal view, but he also antagonizes the Pope and members of the clergy in the book. And he has Simplicius in this dialogue, meaning simpleton, though it's a reference to an interpreter and a commentator on Aristotle, but it's obviously meant to suggest that this person is a simpleton, and that represents the Pope's view. So he just was kind of a jerk, and he didn't play his cards really straight either. The reason I bring up the word literal is because the word literal is very confusing, especially in our day and age, because literal is supposed to mean not figurative or not symbolic, but literal refers to letters, which are signs, and in our day and age are symbols as well. So what does it even mean to be literal? If you tell me, you mentioned Einstein's view of the universe. When you tell me that there is no center to the universe, or we're in this kind of static, infinite sort of universe, or any modern scientific depiction of the universe that you want, and you tell me that the Earth is on this little ball circling this other little ball in a galaxy, in a galaxy cluster, and another galaxy cluster, and a galaxy supercluster, I don't know what that means. If you tell me that man is the center of the universe, I do know what that means. And furthermore, when you say man is the center of the universe, that more accurately describes man's actual position in the world, because man is the nexus of the physical world and the metaphysical world through his rational soul. Man is the only being in this world that can be said of. Animals are bodies, and they have a soul proper to their nature, but they don't have a rational soul. That's why we don't put them on trial. When a cat scratches a human being, we don't prosecute the cat. Ideas are meaningful, and they have consequences in the world, but they don't have bodies. Angels and demons, which I happen to believe exist, as have most people throughout all of human history, but some doubt it today. But angels and demons are real. They have metaphysical reality, but they don't have bodies. Only in man do you see that nexus perfectly in the Incarnation and in the Blessed Sacrament. So that representation more accurately describes what is really going on in reality. Even if, in order to make calculations, we accept the premise that the Earth revolves around the sun and the sun is in the galaxy or whatever, that's fine. But that is a representation too. That's just a picture in your head so that you can make models and make certain calculations. This is a point that is really driven home by Owen Barfield, who you'll hear a lot of us on Daily Wire bring up this writer a lot. He's the guy who was instrumental in converting C.S. Lewis to Christianity, really, really brilliant philosopher. And he just points out that in the world, what we take in about the world around us is necessarily just representations. Right? I'm not really seeing the camera as the camera. I'm taking in the information that the camera has in itself, and then I am perceiving that, and then I am creating a concept of that in my mind, and we hope that accords as well as it can to reality, but it is a distinct thing. And what modern science does is it separates the representations. It separates the phenomena from what the phenomena really mean, and it creates a sort of idolatry out of that. So that's why we think of the human body now as just a bag of chemicals. We don't think of it as a meaningful thing with a soul, because that's the way science has to treat the body. We think of therefore, the cosmos in that same way, but there is more to the cosmos than just the physical world. There's the metaphysical world as well. We all know that. We have to know that. We have to accept that. That's the only way that we can talk. That's the only way that our ideas can have meaning. That's the only way we can have hopes and joys and loves, and all the rest of the things that we can't quite touch. So that's a long-winded version of that view, and it's why it's kind of like that bell curve, for IQ. It's like the really dumb guy would say, man's the center of the universe, and then the guy in the middle would say, well, actually, the Earth is in this galaxy, in the supercluster, and then you get to the top of the bell curve, and it's just the sort of Jedi Knight saying, actually, man really is the center of the universe. That's I think, what's going on when we talk about our representations of science. Make sure you head on over to the member block. We also have fake headlines. I need your help in discerning which headlines are real. So if you are not a member, click the link in that description and join us.